Beyond the Gates spoilers for Thursday, July 31st, tease that Anita Dupree is still grappling with severe stage fright, a condition that's plagued her since her early 20s. Despite countless attempts at therapy, visualization techniques, and medication, nothing has been able to completely silence the anxiety that boils up the moment she sets foot on stage. With the Articulate's reunion concert scheduled to be the comeback of the decade, her breakdown threatens not just her legacy, but also the futures of everyone involved. Anita has kept her fears under wraps, insisting she was ready, that she had everything under control. But deep down, even her bandmates suspected the truth. On the morning of the concert, Anita receives a phone call that shatters her already fragile composure. It's about her husband, Vernon Dupree. The details are murky at first, something about a car accident, a hospital, no further information until the doctors call back. The uncertainty clutches her throat like a vice. As she clutches the phone, her knuckles white, her bandmates notice her sudden change in demeanor. Tracy Tyler and Sharon Winger, always the pragmatic duo, try to calm her, reminding her of the importance of the night. They think it's nerves. They think she'll shake it off. But Anita disappears minutes before soundcheck, and all hell breaks loose. Tracy and Sharon attempt to salvage the concert. Sharon proposes they redistribute the vocal parts and bring in backup singers. Tracy panics. Without Anita, there is no Articulates. The tension escalates behind the scenes. Stagehands scramble. Fans are already lining up outside. What should have been the moment of revival is threatening to become a public disaster. Meanwhile, Naomi Hamilton is on a mission of her own. She arrives at the concert venue not for music but for truth. She is evidence that June is the biological mother of Tyrell and Samantha Richardson. Naomi doesn't reveal how she got this information, but the conviction in her voice is unmistakable. When she confronts June backstage, the older woman goes cold. June denies it outright, brushing it off with scoffing disbelief. But Naomi isn't fooled. She sees the flicker in June's eyes, the flash of something like guilt. Jane, who had been eavesdropping from the corridor, senses the tension and interrupts, trying to change the subject. As Naomi presses further, Danny Dupree stumbles onto the scene, catching the tail end of the conversation. She pauses, watching June with intense scrutiny. Something about the way June tightens her jaw makes Danny suspicious. Naomi turns to her, and without hesitation, blurts out the truth. Danny is stunned. Her eyes widen as she connects dots she hadn't even known were there. The idea that June, the woman she had always thought of as distant and detached, had once carried and given away children and had kept it all secret is staggering. But Danny isn't just shocked by June's secret. There's another layer. As Naomi continues to talk, Danny pieces together something else: the dates, the places, the way certain people interacted. The revelation that Tyrell and Samantha were given up for adoption is only half the story. There might be an entirely separate cover-up involving their fathers, and Danny intends to find out. In another part of town, Chelsea Hamilton is having a difficult conversation with her mother. Chelsea, trying to move on from her past relationship, brings up Allison, her ex-girlfriend, who has been trying to reconnect. Allison has been persistent, sending gifts, texting late at night, showing up at events Chelsea attends. Her mother, ever the strategic thinker, advises Chelsea to be cautious. She reminds Chelsea that she has a promising future, not just in her career, but possibly with Dr. Madison Montgomery. Madison is everything Allison is not: stable, grounded, ambitious. They click. They understand each other. But as they talk, Chelsea's mother shares something she's been holding back. A fragment of family history. An old affair. A possible shared paternal link between Chelsea and Madison. The moment lands like a bomb. If true, it would turn their entire relationship into something forbidden and tragic. Chelsea is floored. She doesn't want to believe it, but she sees the look on her mother's face and realizes it might be real. She knows she has to confront Madison, but how do you ask someone if they might be your sibling? Elsewhere, Nicole Richardson makes her way to a quiet neighborhood in the suburbs to meet Bradley Smitty Smith. She's prepared to beg. Her son Martin has made terrible mistakes, but she believes he deserves a second chance. Smitty, however, is in no mood for negotiation. He slams the door after letting her in, his face hard with bitterness. To him, Martin crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Smitty insists this is between him and Martin, not her. Nicole tries to explain that Martin regrets what happened, that he wants to make amends, but Smitty cuts her off. What burns him most is that Martin hasn't come to him directly. Nicole leaves defeated, but a seed is planted. Smitty, despite his anger, feels the weight of the situation. Their children, Tyrell and Samantha, are about to be pulled away from the only families they've ever known, thanks to Naomi's revelation. As night falls and the chaos around the concert intensifies, another player arrives, Devin, played by Bryton James. He's a smooth operator, known in the entertainment world for making and breaking stars. But tonight, his presence is personal. He approaches Anita backstage, calm and composed, and they talk behind closed doors. No one knows what he says, but when the door opens, Anita is pale and trembling. Rumors spread like wildfire. Did Devin threaten her? Did he bring up something from their past? Anita won't say. But what's clear is that whatever happened in that room was the final straw. She vanishes again, this time leaving behind her phone, her pass, and her costume. Backstage, Sharon and Tracy are at their wits' end. They try to rally the rest of the group, considering a stripped-down acoustic set or even postponing the concert. But the crowd is growing restless. Reporters are catching wind of the drama. Online speculation is already turning ugly. In a side hallway, June sits alone, her mind spinning. She replays Naomi's words, the look in Danny's eyes, the moment she realized her secrets might not stay buried. For years she thought she had moved past that chapter, but it has clawed its way back into her life with a vengeance. And then there's Danny, storming through corridors, piecing together truths no one wanted unearthed. Her next move will either shatter what's left of her family or finally bring the lies into the light. Tyrell and Samantha are unaware of the storm brewing around them. They're excited for the concert, hopeful that things are finally going right. But those hopes are about to be crushed by a truth they never saw coming. Somewhere in the city, Allison is watching all of this unfold from a distance. She sees Chelsea on the verge of making a choice and she isn't ready to let go. And amid it all, the stage remains lit, empty, waiting. The band's instruments stand silent. The audience chants, unaware of how close everything is to falling apart. No one knows how the night will end. But everyone senses that something irreversible is coming. Anita Dupree never returned to the stage that night. The lights dimmed, the screens flickered with placeholder visuals, and the audience was sent home with free merchandise and vague apologies. Rumors spiraled out of control within minutes. Some said she had a mental breakdown. Others claimed Devin revealed something dark from her past. But the truth was stranger still. Anita had driven directly to the hospital. Vernon was in critical condition, unconscious, his fate hanging by a thread. She stayed by his bedside through the night, forgetting the concert, the band, and the fallout. Her world had collapsed to a single hospital room. Tracy Tyler, furious and confused, blamed Devin. She confronted him backstage after the show was officially canceled, shoving him against a sound rig and demanding to know what he said to Anita. Devin didn't flinch. He calmly responded that some truths can't stay hidden forever. Tracy didn't understand. Sharon Winger, more measured but no less tense, suspected Devin knew something deeply personal about Anita and Vernon, something tied to a past none of them had dared revisit. While the chaos unfolded at the venue, June had returned home, shaken by Naomi's revelation and Danny's reaction. She locked herself in her study, pulling out old letters and photographs she hadn't touched in years. She stared at a picture of her as a young woman holding two newborns, her face obscured by shadows. Those children were Tyrell and Samantha. Naomi was right. The truth was undeniable. But it wasn't the whole truth. June had once loved a man who vanished before she could tell him she was pregnant. With no family support and no money, she made a decision she never forgave herself for. She gave the twins up under an alias. Years later, she learned they had been adopted by separate families and reunited only by chance. She never expected Naomi, of all people, to uncover this. And now, with Danny furious and the truth hovering over everything like a guillotine, June knew time was running out. Danny, meanwhile, was spiraling. She went to confront Naomi again, demanding the source of her information. Naomi handed her a manila envelope. Inside were documents, old social worker notes, and one photo with June's handwriting on the back. It was irrefutable. But what caught Danny's eye most was a second set of notes in a different handwriting, hinting at the identity of the twins' biological father. The name had been redacted, but a partial address remained. Danny decided to track it down. At the same time, Nicole Richardson had a change of heart. The interaction with Smitty had left her rattled, but she realized she was only making things worse by acting as a middleman. She called Martin and told him he needed to face Smitty directly. Martin resisted, still angry and proud, but Nicole reminded him that Tyrell and Samantha might not be his family much longer. If he wanted to fight for them, he had to make peace. Martin showed up at Smitty's garage 2 days later, unannounced. They didn't speak for the first minute. Then came the yelling, the accusations, the tears. And slowly, something shifted. Smitty, emotionally drained and exhausted, realized Martin wasn't just sorry. He was scared. They had built a life together raising those kids, and now it was slipping through their fingers. By the end of the night, the two men sat on the garage steps, silently agreeing to work together. Meanwhile, Chelsea Hamilton arranged a private meeting with Dr. Madison Montgomery. She couldn't keep the suspicion to herself any longer. They met at a quiet coffee shop near the university. Madison, ever the professional, greeted her warmly, sensing something was off. Chelsea sat down and blurted it out. Her mother believed they might be half-sisters. Madison blinked. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she admitted her own mother had once hinted at an affair with a man who worked in the legal profession, someone who sounded suspiciously like Chelsea's father. Neither woman knew what to do. They agreed to take a DNA test, but agreed, no matter the result, to put distance between them until the truth was clear. Allison, watching Chelsea from afar, saw her chance. She approached Chelsea a few days later under the pretense of friendship. Chelsea, emotionally raw, listened. Allison apologized. She said all the right things. She offered stability. But Chelsea didn't respond. She was waiting for the test results. Back at the hospital, Vernon Dupree finally woke up. Anita was at his side. He was groggy, confused, and barely coherent, but he managed to whisper a name. Devin. Anita's heart sank. She demanded answers, and Vernon struggled to speak. Eventually, he admitted that Devin wasn't just a music executive. He was someone Vernon had once wronged. There had been a cover-up something about a stolen identity in the early days of Vernon's career. Devin had been the original songwriter of a major hit Vernon took credit for. That truth was what Devin held over Anita. If it came out, Vernon's reputation would be destroyed. And so would hers. She had helped him cover it up, believing they could make it right later. They never did. Anita left the hospital in a daze. Her stage fright wasn't just about fear, it was guilt. And now it was eating her alive. Devin, back in his hotel suite, received an envelope under his door. Inside were documents, old contracts, recordings, proof. Someone had sent him a copy of the very truth he had held over Vernon. The sender was anonymous. But Devin knew this was a warning. The secret wouldn't stay buried much longer. Naomi, meanwhile, pushed forward with her legal claim to prove June's biological ties to Tyrell and Samantha. She submitted the documents to the court, triggering an investigation. The children were brought in for questioning by social workers. Tyrell, confused and hurt, lashed out at Martin. Samantha withdrew completely. The family was fracturing. Naomi didn't mean for this to happen, but she believed they deserved to know the truth about their origin. Then came a twist no one expected. The partial address Danny tracked down led to a man named Daryl Benton. He lived alone, a retired janitor with a quiet demeanor. When Danny showed him the documents, he nearly collapsed. He confirmed he had once been in love with a woman named June. He had never known she was pregnant. Danny brought him to see June. The reunion was raw and emotional. June broke down. She apologized. Daryl wept. They sat in silence for nearly an hour before speaking. But what they shared in that silence was enough. Daryl agreed to take a paternity test. If confirmed, he would step forward, not to claim anything, but to help stabilize the family. Back in the city, Allison made one last desperate move. She followed Madison after work, hoping to catch her off guard. She confronted her, insinuating that Chelsea would never choose her. Madison, calm and composed, replied that this wasn't a competition. Allison laughed coldly. Then she whispered, "You should really find out who your father is." Madison was shaken. She realized Allison might know something. She called her mother, pressing her for answers. Her mother finally admitted that yes, there had been a brief relationship with a man named Jonathan Hamilton. Madison felt the world shift beneath her feet. Chelsea might be her sister. The DNA test results came in the next day. Madison and Chelsea opened them together. The answer, inconclusive. A rare genetic overlap complicated the results. They would need more testing. Neither of them knew what to do. But they agreed not to see each other romantically anymore, not until the truth was absolute. Chelsea cried. Madison held her. The bond was still there. But now it was wrapped in uncertainty. As the city buzzed with fallout from the concert disaster, the revelations kept coming. Smitty and Martin appeared on a local talk show to advocate for their right to remain Tyrell and Samantha's legal guardians. Naomi watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. She didn't want to take the children away from people who love them. But she also wanted them to know who they came from. Danny made a decision. She called Naomi and proposed a compromise: shared guardianship, weekly visits, family therapy. Naomi agreed. The court approved. For the first time in weeks, something resembling peace began to settle. Anita decided to retire from performing permanently. She made a public statement, apologizing for the concert failure and admitting to her years of anxiety. Fans rallied around her. Devin was forced to back off, especially when anonymous leaks began circulating online about the stolen song. The court of public opinion was turning. Vernon, still recovering, reached out to Devin to apologize. Devin didn't respond. But he didn't go public either. Some wounds are left to scar, not bleed. June and Daryl took small steps toward rebuilding their bond. He began visiting weekly. Tyrell and Samantha met him slowly, cautiously. The idea of having a grandfather brought a strange comfort. Chelsea and Madison each began seeing other people. They remained close but distant, the tension still lingering. Allison, realizing she'd lost her chance, disappeared from the scene. Life began to reshape itself. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But honestly. And that, more than anything, is what they all needed. Months passed. The storm of revelations began to settle, leaving behind a city forever changed by what had come to light. The Articulates never reunited again. The planned reschedule of the concert was quietly canceled. Anita stayed out of the spotlight entirely, her voice only resurfacing in interviews where she spoke openly about mental health, guilt, and the cost of fame. Her honesty earned her a new kind of respect. She began mentoring young artists, including those who had once idolized her from afar. Vernon Dupree, now in recovery, sold his remaining shares in the record label and moved with Anita to a quieter part of the state. The music world largely forgot the scandal. Devin left town without exposing Vernon, but his silence was not forgiveness, it was strategy. He had other projects in motion, other stars to make or break. But something in him had changed. He found himself looking back more often than forward. Naomi Hamilton officially stepped back from the case regarding Tyrell and Samantha. With a new shared guardianship in place, she realized her mission wasn't to remove them from their families, but to help them see the whole picture. Therapy sessions began. Naomi, June, Smitty, Martin, Tyrell, Samantha, and even Daryl Benton all sat in the same room, week after week, unpacking years of trauma and miscommunication. At first, the tension was unbearable. But slowly, words became less weaponized. A strange peace started to form, like a cracked window finally being opened. June, once so guarded, became the most changed. She began volunteering at a local youth shelter, quietly giving back to the community she had distanced herself from for decades. The guilt never left her, but it began to evolve into action. Danny Dupree, still reeling from the family secrets, found herself at a crossroads. She considered leaving the city altogether, but chose instead to reinvent herself within it. She launched a documentary series exploring hidden family truths and the psychological toll of long-kept secrets. Her first episode, anonymously submitted to several streaming platforms, went viral. The story resonated with thousands. Chelsea Hamilton received the final results from the extended DNA analysis. She opened the letter with trembling hands. The verdict: she and Madison Montgomery were not related. The earlier test had been misread due to a rare shared maternal genetic marker, one that only mimicked paternal overlap. It was a mistake, and one that had kept them apart. Chelsea showed Madison the results. Madison wept. But it wasn't joy. It was grief over time lost. They met again, months later, as changed women. They didn't fall back into each other's arms. Not right away. But they talked. They healed. And one morning, over coffee, Madison reached across the table and took Chelsea's hand. As for Allison, her last text to Chelsea went unanswered. She had vanished entirely from the city. Some said she left for New York. Others believed she never existed in the way she claimed. Her apartment was found empty, keys left on the counter. Devin, for his part, began working on a memoir. A producer convinced him to turn it into a docuseries, but he left out Anita and Vernon's story. Some wounds deserved silence. The biggest shift came from the community. Those who had watched the drama unfold from the outside started having their own conversations. About paternity. About identity. About truth and forgiveness. Churches held forums. Schools hosted workshops. The ripple effect had begun. Tyrell and Samantha, finally old enough to understand the complexities, stopped asking who their real parents were. Instead, they asked who had shown up. And when they looked around at Naomi, at Martin, at Smitty, even at Daryl, they knew the answer wasn't simple, but it was honest. 1 year later, the city held a benefit concert for mental health awareness and family advocacy. Anita didn't perform, but she introduced the headliner. It was a teenage girl from her mentorship program, trembling but brave. As the girls sang, Anita watched from the wings. Tracy and Sharon were there too, clapping. There was no bitterness. Just history. The crowd swayed, some in tears, others just grateful. June was seated near the front, flanked by her grandchildren. She smiled, a real smile, not haunted this time. In the end, no one got everything they wanted. But they got something better: clarity. The past didn't disappear, but it no longer held them hostage. And somewhere in the city, a new story was already beginning.